There are 4 key elements to making sure that you get the maximum benefit from your myofascial technique. Hi, I'm Aubrey Going from Holistic College Dublin, and today we're going to look at myofascial technique. So myofascia, anytime we see the suffix myo, it means it's related to the muscular system. So myofascia is the fascia of muscle. So we have our epimysium, perimysium, and endomysium. And these layers need to be able to slide against each other, almost like a telescope sliding out. When muscle is dysfunctional, those layers can become stuck together. So the purpose of myofascial technique is to restore glide between the myofascial layers. So let's take a look at these 4 key components to maximizing treatment outcomes when you're doing myofascial technique. So today we're demonstrating this technique on the quadriceps. The quadriceps have a tendency to be short and tight. So we're going to work from origin towards insertion to restore length to a tight muscle. So when applying your oil or massage medium, you're really going to be quite conservative, literally just a couple of drops, because we want a lot of grip for this technique and not a lot of glide. So let's take a look at the 4 different steps to maximizing the effectiveness of our myofascial technique. So step 1, I'm going to sink into depth. So I'm going to apply a pressure until I meet a stop or resistance within the muscle. That's step 1. Step 2, I'm going to apply a stretch. This is what we call our myofascial hook. Step 3 then, I start to lean in with a little bit of body weight. And step 4, I'm going to call for some engagement. So Ali, can you just wiggle your toes? As she wiggles her toes, I can feel a little bit of motion in the quadriceps. Now obviously the quads aren't moving the toes, but we are getting movement through the fascial layers. And that's enough. It's indirect. I don't want her actually contracting her quads, because if the muscle were to contract, it would push me out of depth. I would no longer be down where the restriction is. I'm then going to do a second application. I'm going to use the first finger bone here, the proximal phalange, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I apply my pressure first, I sink into depth, I then stretch away from the origin of the muscle. Now I'm going to lean in with some body weight, and as I start to travel through the muscle, I'm going to ask Ali to slowly wiggle the toes again. Now I don't feel that much movement, so we could ask for some dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. We're moving a little bit more proximally, closer to the joint. So just dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, good. Traveling down at a pace that the muscle allows. Going all the way down, either to the muscle tendon junction, or we could even go down to the attachment onto the patella. And then my third application, I'm going to work with the finger pads. So again, starting off by sinking into depth, stretching the tissue, start applying some body weight so we move, and then call for active engagement. So Ali, you can wiggle the toes again, let's see what we're getting. I don't really feel much movement now in the quads, so can you move the ankle instead? Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Now I'm feeling more engagement through the quads. And again, this is more to do with fascial continuities, not the quadriceps moving the ankle. I could then repeat that. I could go back to my application with the palms, or another option is to apply with the forearm, which looks really strong but isn't that deep. So I sink into depth, pronate, turn the palm down, lean in with some body weight, and then call for movement. So you can use dorsiflex and plantar flex again, Ali. Excellent. Now an important point here is we just hold the pressure. We lean in with some body weight, but we're waiting for the muscle to let us through. I always describe this as like resting a hot knife on butter, that we get this melting sensation as the muscle starts to yield and the fascia actually starts to mobilize. The other thing we need to bear in mind is intensity. On a scale of 1 to 10, we don't want to exceed 4 out of 10, because that means the person is going to start guarding, which means the muscle will tense and push us out of our effective depth. So let's go back to working with the palms. Nice broad application. I'm going to sink in, step 1. Step 2, I'm going to hook. Step 3, start traveling. Step 4, call for movement. So again, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, Ali. And how's the intensity on a scale of 1 to 10? What number would you put on that?
2.
1 or 2. So it's quite gentle, even though it looks very firm and I'm leaning in with a lot of body weight. It's not too intense. And we're actually starting to move a little bit easier as well. And then I would continue on with the backs of fingers, finger pads, and I'm going to cycle through that probably 3 times. So let's review. Step 1, sink in until you meet resistance. This gets you down to the depth where the dysfunction is or where adhesion is present within the muscle. Step 2, stretch the tissue. This engages the fascia and gives us our fascial hook. Step 3, lean in with some body weight so we start to slowly travel along the length of the muscle, helping to unwind those fascial restrictions. Step 4, call for movement. Ask the client to create some motion so we get some shear force between the fascial layers. This is key because it really helps to free up adhesion between those different fascial sheaths. It also helps the nervous system to process what's going on as well. So each of those steps are vital. Our step 5 is probably just the direction that you're going to work, which really isn't a step in applying the technique. It's more part of our overarching principles that we talk about in our fundamentals of sports massage. So on tight muscles, we're going to work from the origin down towards the insertion to create length. On a weak muscle, like anterior tibialis, we would instead work from distal to proximal, or we could say from the insertion back towards the origin. But our 4 steps are still the same. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Put it into effect, give it a try, and maybe let us know how you get on in the comments.